when for this, I need to take it back to late 2023, early 2024. I wanted to get into manga because why not? So I did what any sane person would do. I googled the best manga about cats. And I found Junji Ito's Cat Diaries, and I read that, loved it. So I read some of his other works, loved all of them. I read his Frankenstein, all of his book collections, Black Paradox, Gyro Tomy, all of them. And I loved all of them. And they were just kind of fun, a little bit scary books to read. And then I didn't really know anything, but I would see like this book changed me. The craziest book by Junji Ito. It was No Longer Human. Saying its name even has a weight. No Longer Human. Not even originally done by him. It was, let's see, I cannot pronounce that. Osamu Dazia, who sadly passed away from suicide. Something that is pleasant, not something that is unpleasant, and sewn within the first pages of this book. I have it here with me. I hate this book. It is such a great piece of literature media that I hate it. It is that good that I despise this piece of media. This book, I despise it because of how good it is. And I don't know what that means. This is probably one of the last Junji Ito books I read. After reading this book, I was depressed for months. Because you can probably guess if you've read this book. If not, sorry. So, this is the manga rendition of the book No Longer Human by Osamu Dazia. That's not how you pronounce it. And it starts with the original author's a depiction of his real-life suicide. I didn't know this at the time. I was just reading it, I was like, this is dark. I moved on. It's probably one of the darkest things I've ever seen. The book is a semi-autobiography, as in, well, even less so in the Junji Ito version, but the original was heavily based off of the author's life. It was only published, I believe, a few months or maybe even weeks before he committed suicide, and is considered his suicide note or letter. I believe it is one of, if not the best-selling book in Japan. The original, not this one. It is a very complicated book. I haven't read the original, but I've done some research about the Junji Ito version. Its biggest difference is it has supernatural elements. And this book is, it's hard to talk about. It's something you really have to experience. It's about, you even open up these pages, it's just, I hate this. But I can't fault it. we follow the character as a kid, as he is the king of, not the king, but the kid of a important political figure, I believe, in the early 1900s of Japan, around there. Yeah. And he is always said to be wearing a mask. He doesn't know how humans act. He pretends to be human, it says. I believe he doesn't know why we just like it. He's like, I guess, just a myth, he believes. I believe he says he believes just a myth that if you don't eat, you'll die. He can't think of what he wants for Christmas. Or no, for like his birthday or something, and this upsets him so much. Sorry, my mind's a bit foggy. It's been like over half a year since I read this book. Well, probably not that long, it's been months. Months since I've looked at its pages. He was, yeah, so he didn't really see human, and he was raped by the servants. In the book, I believe he says, I came to find these people were the worst. And this version, I don't see his character seeing that. I don't think he really thinks, I don't know. He doesn't think that much outside of himself. I don't think. Sorry, this is a ramble video. Then it follows with one day at school when you like, in school, he's just kind of the funny kid. And one kid who was so ugly, everyone hated him. He sees through the facade, the mask of him, as he always fails and pretends to be, he wants to be insignificant. And this kid knows that, and that terrifies him to no extent. He hates this kid, but somehow befriends him despite despising him. Now, I believe in the original book, he just moved schools and never saw him again. In the Junji Ito retelling, he finds out that the kid has a crush on his sister and forges stuff to just be like, yeah, she likes you. And then when she rejects him, he brutally commits suicide. And when this happens, I believe the main character, who I do not remember the name of, thinks to himself that he is happy. That this horrible event, he no longer has to worry about that man, that child, because he is dead. And he doesn't feel any remorse or anything. He's happy that he's gone. Anyways, I believe I don't remember how, but he gets bedridden, has affairs with his cousins. One of them kills the other, and the other one has a child. These things did not happen in the original book. But throughout this, he's then haunted by the one who was killed, and the affair he had that left him with a child. That child had the face of the childhood friend who committed suicide. Anyways, though, it continues into his life. You know, he lives a very unhappy life. He basically joins, I think, a far left movement. He doesn't really care about it. But he becomes a leader, so I'm almost on accident. Things just keep happening. It's all horrible. This did happen. There are some supernatural versions of the Junji Ito version, but the real event, he committed a couple's suicide with a girl he met in like a cafe or something, but he survived and the girl died. The real author experienced this, and it was a big scandal because, you know, his dad was politically famous or something. Although I believe at that point the real Arthur's father was dead. Still, like, political family or whatever. So he dies. No, he doesn't die. He lives through that. He lives through a lot of other things. He has a wife. His wife gets raped. He blames her. The marriage is ruined. He is happy for a while before that happens with her. He does have moments of happiness, but they never feel real. And he's never really happy, I don't think. Eventually, he gets sent to an insane asylum. He thinks, I am no longer human. He's reduced to just a mere thing. He is not a human anymore. In this version of the book, he then sees in the female assigned asylum, like across the yard, his cousin who like a decade ago he had the affair with, and the child. He then became, after talking to the actual Arthur, and this is all added in this version, Osamu Dazia, who is also in there, and the insane asylum thing. He meets him, and they share in comfort in each other, and he is finally in his first act of, I suppose, human decency. He says that he wishes to go to a cottage far away from the public eye with the woman who he had an affair with and the son. I'm skipping a lot of stuff here, but we skip to, I believe, a few years later, and we have the author of this book, of the original book that the graphic novelist manga is heavily based off of. He got permission in the, not insane asylum, but like, I guess it is one, to write about the main character. And he goes to meet him, and when he gets there, he's only, I believe, in his 30s, the main character of the book, and this is him. He has been driven to huge aging, and he's been abused by his, I suppose, wife. And he is basically a husk of a human, being haunted by the sins of his past. And we see him, anyways, he leaves. I believe this ending of him seeing the husk of the man who is, well, the author seeing the husk of the character horribly aged and never being able to do anything or even make up for his crimes is meant to be symbolic of him realizing that he cannot do that either. He cannot make up for his sins, and that there's no salvation for him. And I believe this is this book's reason given to his real-life suicide in the 1940s, I think 48. The book ends with the son of the main character, who is now wheelchair bound, and I'll just show you the final shot of him. He's like 38, by the way, and no, it's not like anime white head, just that's how he looks now. And yeah, it just ends with that photo, but right before it shows the son and everything he hates, the sins of his own mistakes, being able to see through his facades and everything, flying a kite made of newspapers, and on the kite talks about the author's suicide. This is the most depressing book I've ever read. I'm just rambling about what I remember after months of reading this book. And this book gives me one question, which I don't really understand if it is important or even matters. What is it when a book is so good you despise it, you hate it? I wish I never read this book. I do not know who I'd be if I didn't. I don't know who I was before I did. This is being filmed on Christmas Eve, by the way. That doesn't matter. Well, not even Christmas Eve, like the 23rd. I don't know if I'll upload this. I don't know what channel I'd upload it to. I just needed to talk to someone about this book. And I don't think even a therapist would understand. Don't read this book. Especially if you're under 18, like there's so much nudity in this book. Like, literally did not read it. Just don't read it, please. I can't read Junji Ito's works without thinking of this one. They used to be a place of escape, so I'm thinking maybe. This book is too real. It's too real. The hatred of humanity, the hatred of being alive in this book. You can feel it, and it's beautifully horrendous. I cannot describe it. I hope after this, I can forget all about this book. Maybe even take off my bookshelf, not even have to look at it anymore. I wish I could spell on this book. I hate it. Because it is so beautiful.